Big show lined up here on the National Football Show. Good afternoon. It's Friday, and we are rolling towards the weekend, which we're going to see a lot of football. NFL Network is going to be broadcasting on Saturday, all 32 teams that you're going to get a peek in and seeing what's going on as we get ready for the upcoming 2021 season. College football has some news. The Olympic Games are going on. As I said to you before, this is clearly a time where you're going to get moving content. Every single day, things are going to be coming out of these NFL camps that could be important when it comes to the success or the demise of a football team, even before they get ready for the first quarter bowl, 4 games of the upcoming NFL season. And we're going to start the show off in Indianapolis. You know, when I heard the news this morning that Carson Wentz had injured his foot, and you were hearing the way that the Colts were waffling back and forth and being as vague as they possibly can, that's always a sign that there's troubling issues there with this injury. And I made a call, and I was on the phone with some of my sources inside the Colts. As you know, I know the head coach very well. I know Brian Baker, who's also one of the coaches, who's a former teammate of mine. Boatload of guys that are in that organization that I've reached out to every now and then just because we're boys, come on the show, have at it. I made a call to a couple guys. And here's the issue. Carson Wentz is going to go with some surgery, and it looks like minor surgery, and they're going to a specialist today. They're going to try to get this thing nipped in the bud. As far as they know, it won't affect at least the first half of the season, but it may affect the first 4 games of the upcoming season. So what does that mean for the Colts? It is without a doubt a massive blow to the Colts as they were getting ready to start up this season. You remember something about Carson Wentz? What has been the one stigma that he's tried to overcome this offseason when it comes to preparing for this upcoming season? Injuries. Now he's starting his era with the Colts with an injury, a foot injury. That's going to need surgery. Surgery will be determined on the severity of the surgery. When he goes to this specialist, he's probably there as we speak. So we're looking at a guy who, once again, has a stigma on him of not being able to stay healthy. This was the stuff that dogged him when he was in Philadelphia, and it's now carried over to the Colts. Got to be troubling. So the Colts, why wouldn't they reach out to Nick Foles? Now, some of you would say, why would you bring Nick Foles in? Because you'd be duplicating the same situation that you had in Philadelphia. Well, the head football coach has to win ball games. He's got a football team that's capable of winning. It's going to be the same type of system that you had in Philadelphia. I mean, you won critical games with him. He's the greatest substitute teacher. And if Carson Wentz doesn't like that, again, he's got to get over that. He's got a head football coach that believes in him. The money that he's making, this is going to be a sign whether or not Carson Wentz has grown as a player or he hasn't grown as a player. You need to welcome this move. If you're Wentz, you welcome this move of reaching out to Nick Foles to bring him in. He's a substitute teacher. Foles is not going to be the starting quarterback in that organization. That's not why they brought Wentz in, or they would have brought Foles in first. They would have made a move for him. That's not what they're doing here. The same stuff that went on in Philadelphia when we were talking about a guy in, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was not drafted to take the job of Carson Wentz. He was a seatbelt. He was a life preserver. He was in case of situations just like this. If Wentz had any kind of nagging injury. Well, here we are. We can't even get through the first week of training camp. Think of that for a second. If you're the Colts and you're in that organization right now and you're the coaching staff, there's no question. Chris Ballard, the general manager, has to be doing this. Of all things, we start the first week of training camp with a guy getting hurt that has a history of getting hurt. I would have said this. Now, look, I know they tried to do everything they possibly could to smooth the waters for Wentz in his transition from Philadelphia into Indianapolis. Maybe they should have went out and got themselves an opportunity to have themselves a safety belt. JAKIB Brissett is no longer there. He's a Miami Dolphin. Brissett won games. Not the greatest quarterback, but he's kind of like a Tyrod Taylor. Not a bad guy to have on your ball team. Belichick knew it as well. That's why you saw teams like the Seattle Seahawks trying to put a third-rounder in front of the Colts at the time to try to bring him up to Seattle as a backup for Russell Wilson. A lot of people in this league like JAKIB Brissett. He's fundamentally taught up in that Josh McDaniels / Bill Belichick offense. He would have been perfect to take the reins until Carson Wentz was able to come back from his injury. They don't have that luxury. They got a bunch of nobodies in that locker room right now. So you have to reach out to a veteran quarterback. You know, this stuff on getting butt hurt too. I don't care if you don't like it. As long as you're open with the player, and why wouldn't Frank be open with him? Frank brought him there. Remember that. This is a different dynamic. Okay? Frank brought the guy and his salary and his wheelbarrow of money to Indianapolis. If that guy gets upset or he gets nervous because Foles is in the house, why? That's on you, man. You need to get over that. Go see a shrink. Buy a dog. Do something. This is about winning football games. You got 52 other dudes in that locker room that have to win. You got a 9th-ranked offense, a 9th-ranked defense. You can win the AFC if you've got a quality guy at that position. You're going to run the ball and play D. That football team is going to look like the Colts look like the Eagles Super Bowl team, don't they? Offensive line, front 7, looks the same stuff. That's how Frank designed it. That's how Chris Ballard, the GM, designed that team. When Frank got that job, he wanted it to look like the Philadelphia football team. Don't you see why they brought him in? Not just because, watch this. It's one thing in the NFL to be boys. Okay? It's another thing to go, does he fit? Man, you could beat boys all you want. End of the day, guys, once again, this doesn't come down to friendships. Nobody cares about that stuff. This comes down to winning games. Win the game. So Wentz, first week, he's already with the tag that traveled from Philadelphia now to Indianapolis. And if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you're not happy about this because here's a guy that could not maybe hit that incentive to make that draft choice a first rounder. Yeah, and look, dummy Eagle fan will do this. Good, I'm glad he's hurt. I'm glad he's hurt. Dude, you needed that guy to be healthy and play his ass off so you could get a first-round draft choice out of it. Instead, you know what you get? You get a bag of pennies. First-round draft choice for a talented player like that? There is no doubt, though. This is what I say if I am the rest of the league now. Carson Wentz is injury-prone. That's all this is now. He's an injury-prone football player. This guy cannot stay healthy. You know, outside of that stretch run, until he got hurt in the Coliseum when he was playing against the Rams, he was putting everything together. Everyone looked at him and went, man, this guy looks like Brett Favre. And then ever since that Coliseum game, where he got injured in that game, he's never been the same. He has never been the same since that injury in in Los Angeles. Never. And you know what the injuries have done to him? The injuries have made him apprehensive. This guy doesn't trust his own body. Why should he? This guy's made of paper mache. Very troubling. Very troubling if you're the Colts. The one disastrous thing you didn't want to have happen. Because you know what this also does? You're trying to also build Carson Wentz's mentality up. You're trying to build his confidence up. You're trying to give him the ability to be able to put the things that happened in Philadelphia behind him. And voila, the first week, this guy's got a foot injury that's going to need minor surgery, we think. And this is going to keep him out of the first 4 games of the year. Not that you have – the only thing that's a saving grace here, you're not learning a new offense. You are learning new personnel, but you're not really learning a new offense. You kind of understand, the audibles. You understand the progressions. You understand how he's going to do groupings. Okay, the blocking schemes. When you have to change an audible out on the odd or even offensive defensive fronts. I get it. There's not going to be a lot of change there for him. But boy, man, I'd rather have an injury somewhere with a major player than lose this guy, because mentality-wise, preparation-wise, and you know what it also does organizationally? It deflates you. You had all this optimism. Hey, he's going to get a new look. He's going to be in a new place. And the one tag that you didn't want. Watch this. He holds onto the ball too much. We can work on that. Okay? He's throwing interceptions. We can work on that. He's always hurt. Can't work on that. That's what he is. Availability is part of the evaluation. Availability and durability. You could be the most talented guy in the play. Here, I'll give you a great example. Bo Jackson is the greatest running back I've ever seen. I've never played against a football player as talented and as gifted as Bo Jackson. I've never been on a football field. Maybe Dion. But I've never been on a football field with a more gifted, talented player than Bo Jackson. This guy was an all-star baseball player and an all-star football player in the same year. Then he gets hurt in that playoff game against Cincinnati. Never the same, hip replacement. And you know what? The greatest football player that I've ever seen. And how about this? I'll back that up. Not the greatest football player I've ever seen, but the most talented football player I've ever seen. He's not in the Hall of Fame because of availability and durability. You could be the most gifted guy of all time. If you can't play, what's the sense of having you? I know, people are talking about mental health and stuff. We were just talking the other day about Simone Biles. See how I'm talking about Carson Wentz? You think Carson Wentz is going through some mental issues right now? My daughter said something to me last night about a human being. Hey, man, I understand that part of it. I always have to check myself on that because, there is a human being side of this. But when you're in a business and you're making $35 million and you got other dudes in the locker room, man, me caring about your feelings, maybe it's a man thing. Maybe it's an insecurity thing. I don't know what it is. But you want to hear this? I don't care how you're feeling. We got to go out and win ball games. You were brought in here to win. Now you heard already. Holy crap. That's how you start your 2021 season at a new place, carrying over the stuff that was in Philly. You know what Howie Roseman's probably saying? Not a shocker. GM of the Eagles is probably going, it's only a matter of time. Could be the first week, 5th week, 10th week. This guy was going to get hurt. How about this? Do you know what you also do now? You put on the table? You think Carson Wentz ever gets through a regular season of playing 17 games in this league? As of right now, I'm saying no. He hasn't shown me he can do this on a consistent basis. He's like the modern-day Jim McMahon, who used to be the quarterback for the Bears. McMahon in his entire tenure as a starting quarterback in the National Football League never played 16 games at any time in his season. Any time in his career, he never played 16 games a full season because he was always banged up. As great as Jim was, as great as a quarterback, as great as a leader, could throw the pill, as good as anybody, never played 16 regular season games at any time in his career. Man, you can't build a football team around a guy like that. You just can't. You can't. Why do you think in San Francisco they went out and got Trey Lance at number 3? Can't count on Garoppolo. Is Garoppolo? What's it? You know what's crazy about that thing? Is Garoppolo a better ball player than Trey Lance? Absolutely. Trey Lance hasn't shown me anything yet, and I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar player. Garoppolo can play when he's healthy. Boy, I'll tell you. I don't know, man. If you're the Colts, you're very disappointed in what's going on now with the guy you just brought in. That has got to be, that's got to be a blow to that organization. And if you're Philadelphia and you're the fans, dude, this is a blow to you too. This is a blow. That stuff, whether or not you like him, has nothing to do with that pick elevating into a first-round pick. You needed that guy to play. How about this? You needed that guy to get to an AFC title game. Well, I don't want to see that. Why? Don't be dummies. Be smart football fans like you are. Boston fans, Pittsburgh fans, New Orleans. Fan bases are smart. They know what a pick is when it comes to being a circumstantial pick, where if the guy plays a lot, the guy gets percentage of plays, it elevates into a first or a second or a third. Don't be dumb. That is important. Very important. All right. Full show for you today. We got Howard Balzer with us, our Pro Football Insider, Sports Illustrated. We're going to talk to him and get his thoughts on all this too. That's big news coming out of Indy. We'll get his thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about the NFC West. I said yesterday that it's the best division in the NFL. He'll be at the bottom of the hour. Legendary Hall of Famer Warren Moon will be with us. That'll be at 5 o'clock Eastern time. We'll talk to the legendary quarterback and get his spin on the Seattle Seahawks and the rest of the stuff that's going on in the NFL. All right, just college football news. You know what's funny now? I saw that the Texas Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners have now been unanimously, accepted into the Southeastern Conference. Really? Like, that was just for window dressing. They've been going over this for the last 7 months. We knew that this was going to be something that was going to get the rubber stamp and it was going to get pushed through. I would make a comment to you. Do you think the college football playoff has been affected by it now? Absolutely. What do you think is tougher to win? The SEC championship or a national championship? Who are you playing in a national championship? The Big Ten? Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, was asked if he thought that expansion on what the SEC is doing is going to affect the college football playoff. Of course it is. There's a rule in place now that you can only have 2 teams from your respective conference go into the Final Four. Well, now that you're having OU and Texas added to that mix, you theoretically could have the top 5 teams in the country in the Southeastern Conference. Watch this. Bama, Texas, OU, LSU, Florida, or Georgia. All could be in the top 5 or 6, right? So you're going to take 3 of the top teams in the country and tell them they can't go to the conference, they can't go to the national championship semifinals. Because of why? There's a rule. Then that thing is basically not really a conference. It's not really something that you look at it and you have the confidence in that that's going to create a playoff for the national champion. The SEC is really the national champion. What would you revere more now if you were a player? An SEC title ring or a national championship ring? I'll take the SEC ring any day. Why? Because I beat a sorry-ass USC team or a decent Oregon team? Ohio State and Clemson are the 2 teams that have been left out of this whole thing. Think about the Big Ten, for instance. What's Michigan done under Jim Harbaugh? They're kind of good. My boy Cal's Penn State, they walked back a little bit last year, right? Probably. Okay, watch this. Did COVID do that? Maybe. But outside of those, Wisconsin, kind of good. But these are the kind of good programs. They're not 12-0 like Clemson, Bama. They're not like those guys. They're 1 tier down, which is not a far tier down. I get it. A couple of years ago when Penn State had beaten Ohio State and they ended up flipping in Ohio State instead because of Gene Smith, the AD at Ohio State, has a lot of weight when it comes to that selection committee. Why the hell do you think he's on it? Ohio State has massive swing. It's the only thing truly. Can you imagine? Watch this. If you took Ohio State out of the Big Ten, what do you think of the Big Ten? Jeez. I think it's a pretty decent conference. But with no Ohio State, who's your perennial national champion? Who's the guy that carries the mail for you? I mean, look at the SEC. Alabama carries the milk, but Georgia could too. Florida could too. LSU had a walk-back year. If you're going to give Penn State a walk, then you got to give LSU a walk back. And they were coming off a national championship. And they put 42 guys in the pros off that national title team. It's one of the most drafted teams of all time next to the 01 Hurricanes. Today, with Texas and OU joining, the Southeastern Conference, it's harder to win the SEC. Winning a national championship. So the Final Four will come down to this. Two, of course, SEC teams will be in it. Let's just say this. Alabama and Oklahoma. Okay? Man, you could put Florida and Georgia in that conversation too. But because of a dumbass rule, which they'll have to change, now you're hoping the expansion of the playoffs affects the SEC. You need expansion for one conference, the SEC, because the top half of that playoff will be all Southeastern Conference teams. The only teams that are going to be kind of like looking from the outside in will be Clemson, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, because their conferences aren't that strong. I'll take that back. The Big Ten is strong, but it's not SEC strong. The ACC, okay, take Clemson out of the ACC. What's in that conference? I don't know. Miami's not there yet. You know me, I love the program, but we're not what we used to be. All right. We will talk with our friend Howard Balzer. We will get his thoughts on this whole drama that's going on up in Green Bay. We'll also talk to him about this latest development going on in Indianapolis with Carson Wentz. We'll do all that next. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show, Dan Sileo. People telling me that Carson Wentz should retire. Would you retire if you were making $32 million a year? You'd have to put a bullet in my head for me to do that. I'm not quitting. You're going to drag me off the field. You should just retire. And what, forfeit the money? Why? Why would he do that? Why would the Colts want him to? There is no doubt now, he has got the stigma of injury prone. And watch this, I'll tell you something else. If you're the Colts and you're Chris Ballard, the GM, do you go in next year's NFL draft and draft a quarterback and do the same crap that went on in Philadelphia by bringing Hurts in on 2? Having him being in the second round and trading up to get him, just so you can have a luxury of having somebody else on the roster in case that guy gets injured? Or do you put Foles on your team where you have a relationship with the head coach and Carson and you go about this thing together? There's no doubt you're going to have a quarterback position in Indianapolis right now by committee, because think of this for a second. If you think that guy is going to go the next 10 years and we're not going to have issues, then you've got your head in the sand here with this. You've clearly got your head in the sand. This stuff in history is repeating itself again. The big difference this time will be if Wentz can handle it this time, because he's got to see the writing on the wall himself. Just like they tried to do in Philadelphia, Frank Reich could lose his job over something like this if this doesn't pan out. If this goes the same way that it went in Philly, Frank could be out, because you'll have a disaster. Too much money being paid to the injured guy. You're not getting production out of the quarterback position, and you're 7-10 with a good football team. Frank's got to look at it like that as well. Along Chris Ballard, cost him his job too. These guys went to, Jim Irsay and said, hey, we want this guy in here. Irsay signed off on it, acquired the money. Okay, well, guess what? Here we are now, guys, and he's hurt already. You got a lot on the line here with this. And now it's going to be, how does Carson handle this? How does he go forward? And Frank's in the room. Frank was in the room in Philly. Of course you reach out to Nick Foles. You don't do this. I don't know why people always try to evade the obvious. What quarterback's out there right now that I don't have to spend a boatload of money on, that knows my system, that I could bring in right now, will be a seamless transition until Carson and us can figure it out? No, I don't want to do that because his feelings may get hurt. I almost just dropped an F-bomb. Where does that play into anything on winning? You're not in a panic mode right now because you got about 6 weeks to the season, right? But you're in a position right now where you have to address this today. Not tomorrow. Not next week after you get the evaluation back from the doctors. You got to address this today. Like when you come out of the weekend and you have your first organized team activities and your scrimmages this weekend which is tomorrow, you better have a direction for the rest of your group to see where you're going in this. By the way, you know what else this does? Most teams go to camp with 90 guys, right? Boy, this also hurts the evaluation of all the rest of the guys, because now, get this, the guys that you may thought fit in better with Wentz, you may have to go, well, man, we need somebody that fits with Foles, if that's going to be the choice they make. Now it slows down the evaluation process of what 52 guys you're going to have, 53 guys you're going to have going into the start of the regular season. You got a lot here to evaluate here, Chris Ballard, the GM, and Frank. And Frank's already starting out his camp. Boy, I'll tell you what, you want to have bad luck. Frank's starting out his camp in COVID protocol, and your quarterback's now potentially going under the knife today on his foot. That cannot be a place you want to be right now. It cannot be a place you want to sit back and go, hey, man, we'll just wait for this whole thing to see how it plays out. That's not a conversation you have to have in that building right now. You've got evaluation money on the table. You've got a pretty good football team. This is a real issue here, and I love talking real issues with my guy. He is Howard Balzer. Don't forget, top of the hour, we're going to have Warren Moon on with us, and we'll talk to the legendary Hall of Famer himself, quarterback that has gone through all kinds of issues like this. And Howard, I want to start it off here in Indianapolis here. Boy, I'll tell you something, man. The one thing that you didn't want to have happen was that, look, you can work on a guy holding on to the football. You can work on sacks. You can work on a lot of things. But what you can't work on is health. And here he is starting out already. His first week he can't get through. And you're Chris Ballard and you're Frank Reich, who's in COVID protocol. Not the way you want to start your 2021 season off.
No, that's a rough beginning. You're right about that, Dan. And certainly, everyone was kind of reacting with fear earlier in the week when the whole deal happened with Dak Prescott and his shoulder. And, of course, they turned MRIs, showed at least what they tell us is everything's okay and it's minor. We'll see what we find out from this situation with Carson Wentz. How much will they be willing to tell us and all those things? So it might turn out to be a minor thing. But the thing that's concerning is that Carson Wentz hasn't exactly had an injury-free career. And so anytime something happens, everyone starts feeling the worst. And especially when you look at the Colts and their backup quarterback situation. I mean, they have a rookie from last year and a rookie from this year as the only backups on the roster. Eaton and Ellinger this year. So you know that in Colts land, they're crossing their fingers and hoping that this is a minor deal with his foot. But as you know, foot injuries can be very problematical, whatever they are, especially with guys that are big guys. And Carson Wentz, obviously he's not a defensive lineman, but he's a big guy. And so that ends up being a big question about it is what is the injury? And then what will be, what is the future? And can it get right? That's the big question.
Absolutely. And like they sent Jacoby Brissett, he's down in Miami now. So, right. I mean, you don't have an experienced guy there. And this is what I said. I go, well, there's only one guy out there. And I hate when the common sense move would be go get Nick Foles. Bring Foles into the football team. Frank Wright knows him. I mean, Carson knows him. Maybe I don't even want to say that word. Carson has to have grown from that Jalen Hurts situation because he knows this. And I would say this to you too. If I'm Chris Ballard, I saw what they did up in San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo can't stay healthy. I may even have to go into the draft next year to find myself another quarterback just so I can have a security blanket for the money I've invested in Carson Wentz. Well, they've got to resolve this now, don't they, Howard? I mean, this can't be a play it out.
No, here's a couple issues here, and you raised some good ones. But you mentioned Jacoby Brissett. He was there when Andrew Luck was the quarterback. He was there last year when Phillip Rivers was the quarterback. Now you bring in Carson Wentz with all the questions about him, and Jacoby Brissett leaves the building. So that raises some eyebrows right there in terms of the backup quarterback situation. In terms of Nick Foles, certainly it makes sense on a lot of levels. The question is, he's got a big contract. I'm not sure, quite honestly. I haven't checked it today, what the Colts salary cap situation is. Maybe that had something to do with allowing Brissett to leave the building. And so that becomes an issue if you're going to acquire somebody like a Nick Foles. What's the contract? Would he restructure to go there and know he's not far away from playing potentially? So that's what will be interesting to see what happens in these next few days.
Absolutely. All right, let me take you up to the drama, the human drama up in Green Bay and that whole thing that played itself out. You know what, though, Howard? I came away from that interview and then the general manager's comments the next day. I wonder if you felt the same way. I feel these two guys want to try to reconcile this thing here, the way that they talked. And if they can reconcile it, they make him part of – I think what he wants to be is a salesman. That's what Aaron Rodgers wants to be. He wants to sell Green Bay to have free agents want to come in there. Did you get that sense too?
Oh, yeah, well, definitely. And then, you hear, as we've heard this in the offseason, people saying, he was upset when Jordy Nelson left and they let him left. And they were upset. He was upset when they cut Jake Kummerow. And I'm thinking, Jake Kummerow, I mean, why? I mean, come on, the guy's just a guy. But then Aaron Rodgers goes through the long list of players who have left. And, of course, one of them was Randall Cobb. Micah Hyde. Micah Hyde came out and said that Aaron Rodgers said something to him when he left a few years ago about it. So, yeah, you're right. He does want to sell it. He wants to be there. He would like to be that guy that begins and ends a career with one team. I'm still not convinced the Packers want that to happen, because if they wanted it to happen, all they had to do is put something in his contract that would guarantee it. And they still have been unwilling to do it. And while on one level, you can argue that with Gutekunst saying what he did about Randall Cobb, maybe that's acknowledging the role that Aaron Rodgers might have. Others are saying that, well, maybe he was sending out there to kind of tweak him. I mean, everyone knew when they traded for Randall Cobb why it happened. So was the general manager have to go out there and then say, well, it'll make Aaron Rodgers make Aaron happy. That's what he wanted. So I don't know. There's still some questions about this relationship. But here's the crazy thing to contemplate. I think most everyone agrees that what really drove this whole narrative the entire offseason was the fact that Aaron Rodgers was the NFL MVP, had 48 touchdown passes. I don't know that the Packers expected that to happen last season. Well, let's just say, as most of us believe and Aaron Rodgers believes, is that they want to play Jordan Love next year. Well, suppose Aaron Rodgers goes out there and not only does what he did last year, or even something close to it, and the Packers win the Super Bowl. Suppose that happens. Do the Packers then all of a sudden go, oh, gosh, we got to keep him? How do you move on from a quarterback after winning that? Now, I know that's speculation. Who knows? But there's a lot of ways that this thing can go that I don't know that any of us can truly predict what it will definitely be.
Howard, do you agree if the Packers thought Jordan Love was ready to go, that Aaron Rodgers would be gone?
Probably. But I don't know how anyone could have ever thought that he would be ready, unless they were just trying to convince everyone, especially coming off a year like last year where there was no off-season program and no preseason games. So even if they had that, what would lead them to believe to all of a sudden say, oh, Jordan Love's ready to play, even if he had played decent in a couple preseason games? I mean, whatever you do there, whatever you do in the offseason, whatever you do in practice, that's all well and good, but that's another world from playing in the NFL, playing in an NFL game, and playing consistently for week after week, which is basically all that Aaron Rodgers has done during his career. And by the way, I mentioned the 48 touchdowns that he had last season. He only has 11 interceptions in the last 3 years combined. 11 combined.
Brady threw 11 last year, I think.
He might have, and so I think everyone would pretty much expect that if Jordan Love was the quarter, I don't care if they think he's ready or not, he goes out there his first year and he's throwing at least 20, you would think, unless the guy's just out of this world. And I don't know that anybody expects that. So, they've created a tough situation here, albeit in one of the toughest situations that I think, Dan, that any NFL team has, is when they have one of these, quote, iconic quarterbacks, and they're getting towards the end of that career, but they don't know how long it's going to be. How do you plan for the successor? The Saints really didn't do it Of course, last year they brought in Jameis Winston on a 1-year deal, but generally they haven't done it. The Steelers have done it several times over the years with drafting guys in the 3rd or the 4th round, but never in the 1st round. And so that's a tough thing for a team to deal with when they get into that situation. Look at New England, all the different quarterbacks they drafted, thinking, okay, how much longer can Tom Brady play? And here he is, still playing. And then when he finally did retire, they didn't have, even though they drafted Jarrett Stidham, they didn't have the guy on the roster that was really ready to take over for him. So it's a tough spot for any team. And it's difficult to handle in terms of when you draft a guy high and when you try to make that break.
Absolutely. The only two baton passings I've ever seen work were Young in Montana and Favre and Rodgers. I mean, you just don't see that kind of progression where you've got guys in the building like that 20 plus years. Let me take you into it.
Remember, Montana was traded.
Right.
He was traded to Kansas City to make way for Steve Young.
And still led a team to a conference championship game.
Yes.
So, hey, let me take you into your division that you're around all the time. I said yesterday that the NFC West is the best division in football. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt, top to bottom. Now, you can make an argument that maybe a division has a better top 2 teams, perhaps, but certainly not top to bottom. Now, Cincinnati, the AFC North is getting close, and it might get close to the NFC West if Cincinnati continues. I shouldn't say continue. They haven't even started an upward move yet, but many people believe they can with Joe Burrow at quarterback. But I mean, heck, you had 3 teams in that division, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh last year, all won 11 or more. So that's pretty impressive. But the NFC, like I said, NFC West, top to bottom with those teams is pretty darn good. Very physical defenses, good quarterbacks, and it's tough. It's tough in that division. And here I am in Arizona, and everyone's talking. So the narrative, Cliff Kingsbury's on the hot seat. He's this, he's that, and maybe he is. But man, it's awful tough to show real improvement in that division when you're competing against some of these other really good teams. And probably the only way they were able to be ahead of San Francisco last year is because how the 49ers were so decimated by injuries. But everyone expects them to bounce back. So that's going to be a very, very intriguing division this year to see how it all plays out.
Howard, do you agree that, anytime you see a guy put on the PUP list, that's sometimes usually an old man injury that kind of jumps up on someone here? I saw that J.J. Watt was put on that PUP list. Give me the insight on what's going on there with him.
Sometimes it could be. What he told us is that after running the conditioning test, he just felt a little tightness in his hamstring. And so they just wanted to be safe and they wanted to be sure. And so was it an old man injury? 32 years old, perhaps. But that's where it is now. The only thing we can judge it by is when he gets back. He hasn't practiced for 3 days. The first 2 days, he wasn't even out on the field. Today, he was on the sideline and doing what J.J. Watt does, talking to guys, getting them going, walking on the field, giving guys pointers. I mean, that's the type of leader he is. So we have to wait and see how quickly it is that he comes back and then if he has any other issues. He did play all 16 games last year. And so if that's all it is, and you're just being very smart about hamstrings because that's the only thing you should do, you don't want them to get worse, then it might not be a big deal. But if it lingers, then who knows what the situation will be.
2 last questions for you here. It looks to me, and maybe you're not, maybe you see it differently here, but why are the NFL quarterbacks in the league hesitant to be like Pied Pipers when it comes to the vaccinations? I mean, Carson Wentz was asked it earlier in the week. He said that's a personal choice. Dak's quoting HIPAA laws.
Which doesn't apply, by the way.
Josh Allen is telling people too it's a personal choice. Are they protecting the teammates inside the locker room that may not be vaccinated? Or are they not wanting to be the face of that for their respected team? How are you seeing that? Because it's really weird because it's coming off as these guys are not vaccinated, and yet you're telling everybody else on the football team to be vaccinated, right, but your leaders aren't. How are you seeing this?
Yeah, I think it's a good observation. And obviously among the unvaccinated, we don't know who they are, but they could be other leaders. I mean, we saw DeAndre Hopkins when the whole story came out about a week ago about potential forfeits. If there's an outbreak that's fueled by an unvaccinated player that tests positive, there could be forfeits and guys that lose their money. And he says, oh man, this is making me want to retire. And this whole personal choice thing, it used to be personal choice, Dan, that you could walk into a bar and smoke a cigarette. Well, then they passed laws against it. It used to be you could just get into your car and not put on your seatbelt. Then they put in a law that says you have to fasten your seatbelt. So I just don't understand this whole personal freedom issue that people are making this into, because what it's about is the health and safety of you, your family, others, in this case, a team. I mean, there's already been, Dan, in the first week of training camp, and some teams reported a little earlier, there's already been 64 players placed on the reserve COVID list. And I believe 50, I think my numbers are something like 59, or I think maybe a little more, about 59 were positive tests. And or maybe a little more, maybe 55, but somewhere in that vicinity. Now, the overall vaccination rate is going up. But here's what I think, here's my prediction. There is going to be, maybe not a prediction, but I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. If a quarterback of all players, see, last year, it was a team thing. Everybody was in the same boat. Now it's not, because you have this, some are vaccinated, some aren't. What will be the reaction from outside, from in a locker room, if one of these quarterbacks who didn't get vaccinated tests positive on a Wednesday or a Thursday of a given week and now has to isolate for 10 days and misses 2 games? And, last year it happened with Cam Newton of the Patriots. Now, he wasn't in a position like a Dak Prescott or a Josh Allen or even Lamar Jackson, who tested positive already. I don't know if he's vaccinated or not. But my point being is, if a guy like that misses a game or two, that could cost your team the playoffs, 1 or 2 games in this league. So I think that's what the NFL is in danger of. I don't think they're in danger of an outbreak fueled by an unvaccinated player, because there's not going to be that many unvaccinated players on teams. But if those are key guys and your leaders, like you said, and they start missing some games because of it, well, that's going to raise a big, big question about why guys didn't get vaccinated.
All right, final question for you. I have to throw a Hall of Fame thing in here for you, because I asked Rick Gosselin this question. Let me bring back my great jersey that I got from Mark Gastineau here. All the Sack Exchange guys have signed this jersey. Abdul Salam, Klecko, Gastineau, all of them there, Marty Lyons. He said this was the 9th-ranked best defensive line in NFL history. Where do you put it?
Wow, I never tried to rank them myself. I haven't seen his list, so I won't quarrel with Rick Gosselin, who is as good a historian of the game as anyone. Obviously, he can always say, oh, this one should be 8, this one should be 5, whatever it is, but I'm sure he's highlighted the top ones in history. I would say, though, the guy, at least in terms of the Hall of Fame, that's more overlooked than Mark Gastineau, because certainly he was a pure pass rusher, nothing wrong with that. But in terms of a complete player, I think Joe Klecko is the guy that probably deserves Hall of Fame consideration more than Mark. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he was in Pro Bowls on the inside and the outside.
Yeah, all 3 positions.
But he didn't pile up sack numbers.
Yep.
And I think sometimes that's unfortunate, because we hone in on certain numbers. And while those are not unimportant, it's also important to play the run, do all the other things. What are you doing on those plays where you're not getting sacks? Because if you look at it, if a guy plays whatever it is, 800 to 1,000 snaps in a season and has 20 sacks, well, what's happening on all those other plays? And I think that's a legitimate question. But Joe Klecko was a guy on every, and I'm not saying Gastineau didn't, but Joe Klecko was a guy who came to play on every single down. And I think he's been somewhat more overlooked than Gastineau has.
Absolutely. I think they're both phenomenal football players. Howard, it's always great catching up with you. Thank you so much, my friend.
My pleasure, Dan. Anytime. You know that. Take care.
You got it. That is our friend Howard Balzer from Sports Illustrated. We'll take a brief time out. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show. Dan Sileo. We're efforting our friend Warren Moon, Pro Football Hall of Famer. I say this to you about the Packers. If they thought Jordan Love was ready to go, there's no way Aaron Rodgers, with all this BS that went on in the offseason, would still be a Green Bay Packer. An organization like that doesn't tolerate that kind of behavior. That's not who they are. That's not how Green Bay operates. They didn't tolerate that stuff with Brett Favre. They moved his ass. They were not going to move him inside the division. If you remember right, they had to move him to the Jets first, and then he came back inside the division when he went to the Vikings. But Favre was not, his exit was not received well by the Packer front office. But I do say this. I do think after what we've seen the last couple of weeks and that press conference and the way the Packers and Rodgers have acted over the last couple of days, I do think that there is a reconciliation that's trying to go on here. Because look, if you're Aaron Rodgers, do you really want to take the dice out and roll it and think that you're going to come up snake eyes the same way that you did with Brady down in Tampa? How many people think that situation is going to happen again? Like, here will be the good litmus test. Indianapolis and Los Angeles and Detroit a little bit. All those quarterbacks now have new zip codes. We already see what's going on with the Colts. Guy starting out the same way he started out the last couple of years in Philadelphia. Wentz, injured. Matthew Stafford seems that, he's a kid again, like a rookie. He's enjoying himself because he's got Sean McVay. Well, that's all good and well when you're in shorts. And you got Jared Goff up in Detroit. We'll find out. You think, now look, I'm not comparing those guys to Brady. I am not saying that at all. I am not saying that. But let's look at it for what it is here. How many times do you think you're just going to go, well, you know what, I'll do what Brady did. I'll go somewhere else and it'll be magical for me and I'll be able to get everything I want and I'll have all the players I need. You know, he wants to be a salesman. Well, end of the day, our organization's just going to turn it over to you like that, like they did. Remember something, Brady's equity in the NFL, you're going to feel more apt to do it because the guy has done it. Aaron Rodgers is 1-4 in conference championship games. Last Super Bowl he won was a decade ago. Plus, you think you're just going to roll into New Orleans? Right? Or other places? And do you want to do that? Do you want to do that? I think that's the fundamental question. Okay? All right. We're going to take a brief timeout. Just got a great text message from my friend Warren Moon. We're going to have him at the top of the hour. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show. Your boy Dan Sileo. I love my guys, man. All good. We're here. Football season is here. I can't wait to tune on, really. not only just the JAKIB Media Channel and the National Football Show, but I can't wait to see what the NFL Network is going to do on Saturday. All 32 teams are going to be on the field, and we're going to be able to go around and see all these teams as they prepare for the upcoming 2021 season. And you're going to dip in and you're going to see how they're preparing. It's going to be great, man. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I said this yesterday. That's one of the really cool things that the NFL Network has, is that the ability to be able to have the accessibility to show the fans. And I think it's part of the branding that's going on, with the league. The league never has any downtime. And now all the fans and football fans, because watch this. Would I be interested to go in and dip into the Tennessee Titans practice? I sure would. I'd like to see how they're preparing with Derrick Henry this coming season. Would I be interested to dip into the Jets? Yeah. I haven't really seen Zach Wilson at all under center with the Jets and how they're starting to prepare for that whole new journey that they're going to go on with him. Philadelphia, too, with Jalen Hurts, just dipping in to see that's what I say is the best part of the network, is that they truly get a chance to give you the accessibility of what these teams are getting ready to do. Because look, when you go through any of these practices, let me give you a little bit of an insight here as you get ready for camps and as you're going through camps. First week, 2 weeks of camp, conditioning. You're doing your conditioning test. They're finding out what kind of shape you're in. Then what they're going to do is they're going to start implementing the playbook. They're going to start doing things and getting your top plays down defensively and offensively. And you're really not going to start preparing for the upcoming season till you probably get through a little bit into the preseason games. And a guy that went through a boatload of these, I wonder how many preseason games Warren Moon played. There's no way. I think Warren played 17. I think Warren played 17 seasons. How many of those years did you play preseason games? Let me put a number. I'm going to say Warren Moon probably played 10 preseason games. Am I right?
10?
10.
No, Dan. No.
Okay.
I loved playing in preseason games. I didn't play a lot, but I played because I wanted to get ready for the season. You don't just start the season by not playing any real football games, going through all the different procedures that you go through in a game, whether it's 2-minute drill. You can do some of that stuff in practice, but you can't simulate a game. So I played a lot, and you talk to most quarterbacks that played during my era or before, we played preseason games, and they were important.
Would you also agree that was
because everybody's worried about injury now. Everybody's so worried about injury now, they don't want to play guys. They don't want to get them prepared for the season, and that's one of the reasons I think you see so many injuries early in the season is guys don't play. They're not prepared for the speed of the game when the season starts because they haven't had any preseason. Now all of a sudden they're banging like crazy in a real game that has meaning, and they're not ready for it. And you see all these guys go down in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So preseason is important, just like training camp is important, just like contact in training camp is important. That's where you get the callus on your body to get ready for the season.
And I would also say this too to you, Warren. I think this is probably one of the reasons why your era, you guys called the majority of your plays and your audibles. I mean, you knew where to throw the ball because you guys were in these practices. You're doing 3-a-days. You're in there for 3 months. You're with your guys. When you see guys today, they're kind of telling them where to throw the ball like they did in college. You guys were more in tune to what the plays that you had practiced all throughout the week. Do you get a sense that that's probably why there's a little bit slower of a learning curve for these quarterbacks as they come into the NFL because of the lack of preseason preparation?
Yeah, and the fact that they don't get that off-season time like we used to get, and the time that they do get is very limited on the field as to what they can do. Like even right now in training camp, 2-a-days or no more. You have a practice and then you have a walkthrough. I mean, so that's basically what it comes down to, and you only get so many practices during that time. So the game has definitely been cut down, especially for young guys who are trying to come into this league and establish themselves. They don't have the necessary time to learn the playbook and get it down to where they feel comfortable with it. And then you've got free agents that are moving around from team to team. They're going through the same thing. They don't get a chance to come in and really get acclimated to the system that they're getting ready to go into. Even though they're coming, they might be 8-year veterans, but if they're going to a completely different system, terminology-wise, in that, it's going to take a while for that transition to happen.
You know, Warren, I've told you this before, and I forget the defensive tackle that was in Houston at the time. I think his name was Doug Smith. He had some personal issues that were going on then. They had brought me in for an entire week. Then I stayed for another week, and I had a chance to observe you and Jerry Glanville on how you guys communicated with each other. You know, it looked like you really were running the practice on the offensive side. I watched you, and, you know, they would come over and talk to you. You were talking to the offensive coordinator. And where I'm going with this is, you know, with Aaron Rodgers up in Green Bay and even Russell Wilson in Seattle, how much of that practice, how much of that team did you have a say in personnel? Did you have a say in direction of how you were going to attack a particular opponent? Then maybe people didn't realize, because it looks to me these quarterbacks today, they want to have say in all of that. How much say did you have in the direction of your football team?
Well, I was definitely able to make suggestions, and I was also come to and ask my opinion on certain players, whether especially offensive players, because those are the guys you're with every day, and you kind of see what they do every day as far as running backs, as far as wide receivers, tight ends. So, yeah, your opinion is asked, and I think a lot of quarterbacks, if you talk to them during that time, Dan Marino, with whoever it is, John Elway, these guys were asked their opinion on personnel too, but that doesn't mean they're going to go with what you say. They're just getting your feel for what you think a player might be able to do for the football team. So that's all I really needed. I didn't need to make any personnel decisions, because I wasn't going to sit down and take the time that it takes to break down a player, and I also had to know all of the salary implications that go along with that. So it's a very complicated thing for general managers, and I know Aaron feels bad because some of his favorite players on the team aren't there anymore, but that's what happens in this game. It's always going to be turnover every year. You're never going to have the same team, and there's always going to be guys that you're shocked that they got let go, but you don't really understand the whole situation. Now, if they want to explain that a little bit more to him on why they did what they did, maybe he would understand it more, and he wouldn't feel as bad about not being included.
Did you ever vent your frustration when they got rid of a player maybe you thought really was a important component to your team? Did you ever privately? Because today, obviously, social media and the quarterbacks are more vocal than they were back in our era. Did you vent when you said, hey, this guy here, this is going to hurt us?
I would just ask the general manager what was the thinking behind that decision, and they would usually tell me, whether it was contract related, whether it was salary cap related, whether it was, you know, we got a younger player behind him that we think can do the same job. Whatever the case may be, for the most part, these teams make pretty good decisions on personnel, because it all has to fit into one big box, and that box is not just, you know, one thing that's necessary within that box. There's a lot of different factors on why a player might make a team or might not make a team.
Alonzo Highsmith and Bubba McDowell told me you ran that baby, so I'm just going to go there with that. Dan, let me throw that in there.
I ran with the guys that I had, you know, that's all I can go with. There were other people that had the responsibility to bring in the guys. It's my responsibility to get those guys ready to play.
Let's go into the Seahawks here, 2021. I said this, Warren. I think the NFC West is the toughest division in all of pro football, top to bottom. I think even that Cardinal team is going to really frighten some football teams this year too, and they're going to get better with Kyler Murray. Where do you see the Seahawks 2021 landing?
They're going to be right there at the top of the division like they were last year. They won the division last year, but whenever you play a divisional opponent in the playoffs, a team that knows you very well, that's already played you twice, and especially the Rams, who basically, you know, always had the Seahawks number, it's going to be tough. And they happened to get the Rams in that first preseason game. I mean, that first playoff game, and they got beat by the Rams. So it didn't surprise me that the Rams beat them, because it's very tough to beat a team in your division because they know you so well. So the Seahawks are going to be right there again this year. I think they're going to be much more improved on the offensive line. They bring in a new offensive coordinator that I think is going to create an offense that gets the ball out of Russell's hands a little bit quicker, so he's not holding the ball as long. And then defensively, they're very deep at the defensive end spot, so they can get pressure on the quarterback. And that's something you have to be able to do if you're going to play the type of defense they play. You can't allow the quarterback to sit there and pick this zone apart. If you're getting pressure on the quarterback, now that plays right into this defense's hands. So I think they're going to be right there at the top as they always are, and we'll just see how it plays out. Because like you said, the NFC West, most toughest division from top to bottom in the division.
Absolutely. And if they win it, you're in the conversation for the Super Bowl. You know, I'm going to take a positive approach to this question I'm going to ask you here. Instead of, you know, being my daughter and my wife always remind me, you were a former player. Don't act like a media turd. And I'm always reminded of that, Warren, not to act like that. So I'm going to look at this as a question that could be, maybe it's something that galvanized Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. Maybe the airing of issues that he thought, and maybe he wanted to get off his chest, Russell Wilson. Maybe this galvanizes this football team, and maybe the relationship between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson is as good as it's ever been in his 9 years previous since he's been in Seattle. Can I look at it that way?
I think you can, because they've always had a pretty good relationship. But, of course, Russell showed some of his displeasure with some of the things this offseason, and I think those things were addressed. So because they were addressed, I think that just creates more trust between the two of them, and it brings them closer together. We'll just have to wait and see what happens after this season is over, because that'll be another season, and you never know from year to year. But right now, I think their relationship is pretty strong.
Let me ask you a personal question about what's going on in the NFL, and you're seeing some of these quarterbacks when it comes to a very hot topic, and that's vaccinations. For you, Warren, would you be a Pied Piper in the NFL locker room right now on getting players vaccinated, and not for a health reason, but for a team reason? And where I'm going with this is the league is trying to make it difficult for non-vaccinated. And by the way, this is not I'm not stumping for either side. However, we're all in this together. There's 53 guys in a locker room. And if somebody like you, Warren, misses a game, that's going to affect our win-loss total. And I'm going to have an issue with that, because what people don't realize that listen to us, my incentives are based on your success. If I'm an offensive lineman or I'm a D lineman and you're winning games for me and you miss 3 games, Warren, all of a sudden now we're 10-7 instead of being a 12-win football team. That's going to affect my wallet along with the opportunity to win a Super Bowl. Do you think it's the quarterback's responsibility to be a front man in this? Because Josh Allen, he's not saying it. Carson Wentz came out earlier saying that he thinks it's a personal decision. Even Dak Prescott came out and said he's quoting HIPAA laws. I mean, how do you and where do you land on this topic?
Well, I think it is, people's personal opinion, but I also think that, okay, it's your personal opinion, but the league also has the right to put down the rules that they put down. So if you choose the route of not wanting to be vaccinated, then you're going to have to abide by the rules that the league puts down. And that's what a lot of players are upset about. They're trying to have their cake and basically eat it too. And that's what your union is for. If you feel like you should have a say-so in not being able to get the vaccine, then your union should fight for those rights. But I think the way it is handled last year with the protocols and everything that were put in place, all that was agreed upon. So as you know, Dan, everything is pretty much, agreed upon by the union, and that's the way things go. So these players that are upset about whether they might not be paid for a game or if they cause an outbreak or whatever it might be, they have nobody to blame but themselves, because they know what the rules are, and they know if they do get vaccinated, that doesn't apply to them anymore. So, yeah, it's their personal choice, but the league also has the right to lay down the law of what they want to happen to make sure these games are played each and every week.
What would you say to your players in the locker room?
I would have a team meeting, and I would let everybody voice their opinions on the reasons for and the reasons why you don't want to have it, and see where they're getting their information from, first of all, and just kind of flesh it out that way, so everybody knows how everybody feels, and there's not a lot of one-on-one conversations or little group conversations. I want the whole team to know everything that's going on, so everybody is transparent about it as we move forward. And that's the kind of the way I would handle it if I was a leader on a football team now.
Last question for you here. My coach, Jimmy Johnson's going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And, Warren, I just wonder what that was like for you when that weekend for you when you decided that, you were going to name somebody to introduce you. You got your jacket and all, and then you got a chance to get to the podium and tell your story. I love the stories because the stories are always family driven, because your family has to be behind you, and your journey is the most incredible journey of all time, one of them at least. What was that week for you? Jimmy Johnson's telling me this. He's like, my head's spinning. He's thinking so many people that he's going to thank, his mom, his dad, his opportunities that certain coaches gave him, the players, the assistants. For you, what was that week like?
If you could imagine, Dan, if you were going to have a wedding, if you were going to have a family reunion, and if you were going to have maybe a graduation all at the same time, like all in the same weekend, that's what it's like, because you're talking about people that are involved in your life from the time you ever put on, a football shoe. And for me, it was 10 years old, all the way up till that day. All the people that were included in your life, all the people that were included in your journey as far as the different levels of football that you played, everybody that played a role in that, all the support you got from family members. My mom was a huge factor that particular weekend, because she's the one that made it all possible for me. So yeah, you don't go up there and look at that bust and put that jacket on by yourself. You put that jacket on with a number of people. And I had 265 people that were just able to make it that weekend. That doesn't even include all the people that weren't able to make it. So it was like they say, it takes a village to raise a whatever. Well, it definitely took a village to get me to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So there's a lot of people I credited for that. And that's what makes the weekend so great, that you're able to share all of that with everyone, and everybody feels like they're a part of it because they were with you along that journey.
Absolutely. Quickest release, Namath, Marino, and this guy right here, Warren Moon, man. That baby he spun that rock every time he threw that baby down the field. Hey, Warren, thank you so much, my friend. It is always an honor to have you on our program.
All right. Thanks a lot, Danny. I'll talk to you down the road.
You got it. The legendary Hall of Famer Warren Moon will take a brief time out, reset. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show. I gotta love Eagle fan. Wentz is a bum. Somebody in the chat room. Wentz is a bum. You know what, dude? I think he's a talented kid. But would I want him as my starting quarterback on my football team? There's a lot about Wentz I like. He does remind me of Favre. Except for one thing. Favre plays with a broken spleen and, you know, this guy's got like broken arms and legs and he's playing. Brett Favre's consecutive games played streak in the NFL will never be broken ever again. And it's more impressive, actually, than Cal Ripken's record for consecutive games. Cal played in the American League. He could leave after the fifth inning. Or how about this? He could DH. I mean, right? I mean, the record's great. It's a longevity record, okay? But when you're hitting 204 at the end of your career, I don't know. Are you being productive for your team? Or are you just chasing down a record? So I'm like, you know, I know Chan-Ho Park, he had a home run in the All-Star, but whatever. This guy's hitting 214. That was a great moment. Oh, well, okay, great. But I don't think he was very productive in the last 5 years of his career. The Orioles wanted him to get that record, and he did. But he wasn't productive, and he was never in the category as a hitter or a player like Gehrig. I mean, Gehrig wasn't defined by that streak. Ripken is. Gehrig had 500 home runs, you know, played next to Ruth. I mean, he wasn't defined by that streak. Anyway, and nor is Favre defined by that streak. Favre was defined by durability and enjoyment watching him play the game. Funny, my wife went to a Raider-Packer game when I was broadcasting, and I was doing the pregame show for the Raiders. I did the Raider pregame show for 2 years. And my wife is sitting in the stands, and she's watching Brett Favre play. She comes back out, and she says, he is spectacular. He is just spectacular to watch. The word spectacular. Like, my wife's not easily impressed. And she's like, he's just a spectacular quarterback. And I was like, wow, really? And she's like, yeah, he's just easily one of the most impressive. It's funny. I'm trying to wrap my arms around the question I just asked all of you. Would you want Carson Wentz as your starting quarterback going into a 2021 season to try to chase down Tom Brady and win a Super Bowl? Watch how I dissect this. Well, if I have the Colts, no, that's not what I'm asking you. Do you want that guy as your signal caller? Whew. Hey, I think we could probably do that going down the list of teams, right? Do I want Carson? No. Yeah, but Danny's a talented guy and you like him. Yeah, but he's an injury away from missing the year. This guy can't even get through the first week of training camp. And they haven't even been hitting yet. First contact drills are going to be this weekend. He can't get there? Holy cow. Is that a problem? Let's think about that for a minute. Would I want Aaron Rodgers? I don't care about the drama. Yeah. You know what? How about this? That guy has so much drama, it makes me sick to my stomach. But his talent I'm going to give you the Jimmy Johnson scale of how he evaluated players. Aaron Rodgers is a guy that makes you throw up because of his behavior and how he acts. But his talent overweighs that. The scale goes down because that dude is so good. So you tolerate that behavior. Yeah, I want that guy. Matthew Stafford. I think I have, watch this. Now, listen how there's going to be guys you say yes to. Then there's going to be guys that you have to rationale in your own mind to. Matthew Stafford, well, I have to see him in practice and how he is with his new team. Didn't affect Brady. By the way, I'm not going to bring Brady into the conversation because that's a stupid question. It's going to be every other guy but Brady. You're not going to ask the question, would you want Tom Brady? Come on. That's Sports Talk 101 stuff when you're trying to get calls. Who cares? Jimmy Garoppolo. No way. He can't stay healthy. I've got to roll the dice on my career that he's healthy or not. Jesus criminy. That means I'm on pins and needles every week. You know, I could show up to my facility. One day he can't play because of something. Then my whole season shot. Jesus criminy. You're kidding me. Really? Think of I'm not going to use rookies. Jameis Winston in New Orleans. I'm not even going to answer that because it's so dumb. That's another dumb one. There. Kirk Cousins. You know what? Let me say this about Kirk. I'm all right with him. I know some of you are going, well, he's not really all that. No, but you know what? He's durable. He's there, and he throws for big yards. Kirk Cousins not the troubles in Minneapolis. He's not the issue. They don't win. Okay? They don't win because they have bad luck, bad injuries, and some personnel issues on their defense. They got to stop people on that other side of the ball. That's a good football team. They're very competitive. Is he a super? No, but I can win with him. Yeah, but you said no to Stafford. Stafford ain't ever won anything. Now all of a sudden a change of address is going to change that? How about this? That's a guess. That's a guess. Right? Ryan Tannehill. Kind of the same thing with Kirk Cousins. You give me Derrick Henry and that guy? All right. I'm all right. Been to an AFC championship game? I'm okay with that. Ben Roethlisberger. Ben's on the back nine. We all know that. Najee Harris has been brought in to do exactly what they're doing in Tennessee. What they did under John Elway in Denver. Trying to build a running game behind an aging quarterback. The only problem with the Steelers and what they did, the Steelers did it too late. Roethlisberger's 39. I mean, everything Ben and the Steelers are doing a little bit here at the back end of Ben's career is about 2 years too late. You want to build a running game? You let Bell go. Your offensive line, 3 guys in the O-line retired. Then you draft a running back who could be Derrick Henry. And now you've got deficiencies in the O-line. You know, I mean, it's kind of a little bit too late. And now you got a fat body quarterback who's laying off the jelly donuts, calling it, well, here's my off-season workout. I don't know. It just seems a little bit late. Can he win games? Yeah. Can he win a Super Bowl? I don't think they got the personnel in the O-line. Their defense is top 3. They got some really good football players on that defensive side of the football. They really do. And they can get after people. But so you're going to win games 17-10? I don't think so, especially in that division. And that division, the Bengals are getting better. I know, I said it. Hey, watch this. Do I want Joe Burrow? I do. I think Joe Burrow's special. I think Joe Burrow's special, and I don't really have a problem with that roster they got around him. That Dixon kid can play. You know, they got that kid out of Oklahoma on a bargain basement because of that situation that he had when he was there at OU. He was a first-round talent. Kid could play. But Justin Herbert, you're damn right I want to play with that guy. Evan Mahomes not answering that. It's dumb. That's another dumb one. Teddy Bridgewater in Denver. That's another dumb one. I want him as my quarterback. He's kind of okay. The point is, you could go around the league right now, and I would say 80% of the league, the quarterback that's under center, you're going to have a problem with leading your team to a Super Bowl. So, back to Wentz. Wentz is in that group. My problem with Wentz is you're trying to structurally fix him when it comes to his game, and you can't fix the one thing that's dogging his career: injuries. If that guy was a player that didn't get hurt, and this is one thing, again, you got to go back to Chris Ballard, and you got to say this now. If you're Chris Ballard, you go back and you brought in a guy that you knew was injury prone. It's like drafting or signing Grant Hill after he got hurt in Detroit. When you make a deal for an injured dude, what makes you think he's not going to not be injured? You're just going to wave the wand, and because Frank's his boy, that doesn't change the makeup of what that player is. Boy, I tell you, man, do I sound down on this? I am down because that's the one thing I couldn't hear. Yeah, I'd rather have the Colts coming out going, he's struggling picking up the playbook. His receivers and him aren't on the same page. He's still holding on to the ball too long. The worst thing I can hear is this: he's hurt again. Because you can't develop, you can't work with him. Your receivers and him can't get on the same page with one another. That's a big-ass problem. It's a big-ass problem. All right, I got a text last night, and this is, I think you're going to see more of this. We're going to go over to the college game here for a couple minutes here. FSU and Clemson now have made it clear publicly that they may want into the Southeastern Conference. How much is ESPN, television networks, getting involved in this? Follow me here. Could you potentially see the SEC and the ACC combining, not taking everybody from the ACC? What teams would you want? You'd want the brand football teams: Clemson, FSU, Miami. You take some of these teams and you create a Southeastern Conference power conference. ESPN has the television rights for both those conferences, ACC and the SEC. Remember something also. If you absorb the ACC, what's the one thing the Southeastern Conference doesn't have? Basketball. Kentucky, Bama's getting better. LSU is sporadically good. But what you have in the ACC, you have football. What you have in the ACC, you have basketball. Carolina, Duke, NC State. You got really good basketball in that conference. It's a basketball conference masquerading as a football conference in the fall. If you're Greg Sankey, you tried maybe to create this gigantic super conference where you have the entire Southeast basically with a picket fence around it. And you really don't need to do anything else. I don't know how the rest of college football is going to handle this. But when you have programs like Clemson, we had Dabo Sweeney at the beginning of the week on the program. Dabo, I don't think, is a real big fan of what's going on, especially when it comes to the nil stuff, when it comes to the likeness and imaging stuff that the players are now making a boatload of money. I don't think he's a gigantic fan of this. And I don't think he's a gigantic fan of expanding the playoff, too. You know, his notion is, why don't you can go back to the JAKIB Media Channel, National Football Show, also, and listen to that interview and hear Dabo say, if we're going to have regular season games, we may have to tailor back. You know, if you want to expand the playoff, we may have to tailor back regular season games then. Okay? I mean, that was his position. Well, what happens when you start taking games away? That means you're starting to take home games away. And you're not going to want athletic directors listening to a coach talking about taking television games away that generate you a boatload of money, especially when you have a fan base that puts 85,000 fans at Death Valley. That's not going to work for those programs. That's their local revenue. They're going to make a boatload of money when it comes to their television revenue. As I said yesterday, with the new expansion with OU in Texas, those teams are going to generate $80 million a year in TV alone. It's a $150 million a year entity that these college football programs are going to be generating. That's not counting the NCAA tournament when it comes to basketball. You could be generating the same amount of money that NFL teams are generating with the college basketball NCAA tournament in the fall with football. This is no longer amateur sports, and you can't hide behind the guise of that. Can't do it. It's a gigantic business. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the world? And I mean our world in college football. Programs like Memphis, why even play football? South Florida, UCF, why do I care what you're doing if I'm the SEC? I don't care. You have no chance of playing for a national championship. Zero. There's no chance. You can't compete against programs that are generating $150 million in revenue. It's like Manchester United taking on the LA Galaxy of the MLS. You can't compete against those Premier League teams. They're paying guys like Ronaldo $50 million a year, and the highest paid guy on your team is making $1.5 million. You think everybody's going to be the Tampa Bay Rays? That ain't going to work. Very few teams get it done like the Rays do. Okay? Very few teams. So, yeah, this whole landscape of college football here, make no mistake about it, man, it has changed forever here. And when you hear people saying, well, it's not going to affect the college football upcoming expansion, how can it? I opened the program by saying, what do you think, honestly, what do you personally think is tougher to win? An SEC championship or a national title? Can you imagine? Get this. Let's just put a schedule together. If you're Bama, here's who Bama has to go through. A&M, LSU. I'm just talking about the West. A&M, LSU. Now you have to play OU. Now you have to play Texas. Then you go across and over to the East. And you got to play Florida, Tennessee. Then if you get to a championship game, you got to play Georgia. Or don't forget the Iron Bowl. You got to play Auburn. Where's your break in that schedule? That schedule is as tough a schedule as I have ever seen in the history of college football. I've never seen anything like that. The amount of teams that you're going to have to play, and for the record, what would be in the best interest for the SEC to bring some team like the Citadel back in and play when you could put a TV game in there and you could put Auburn, Alabama in there? Alabama playing like the Little Sisters of the Poor? Those games are toast. Why? I have no interest in watching that. The SEC is the Premier League of college football today. And now if you add Florida State and Clemson into that, I would never tune my television set on a Saturday. I would tune it to the SEC channel, and I would tune it to ESPN all day long. ESPN's new contract, they have taken it away from CBS. Where Big Ten football? Hey, Penn State, Ohio State. Okay, you got my interest. Penn State, Wisconsin, I don't know. Penn State, Michigan, maybe. Okay, they got a great fan base. They fill that stadium. It's an incredible stadium that the Lions play at. Penn State, Indiana, 1 year since 1967, Indiana was good. John Pont was the coach of Indiana. Do you know who that is? Neither did I. I had to look it up. Last time they went to a Rose Bowl. Yeah, and they were good last year. I was like, okay. Northwestern, who cares? They built bombs at Northwestern, not football teams. Iowa, kind of a decent team. Iowa, Penn State. I mean, where are we going here? Watch this. Tennessee, Florida. Georgia, Florida. Bama, A&M. Bama, Texas. Jesus criminy. I would watch those games over some NFL games. Titans versus the Texans. I'll take the Longhorns versus the Tide any day. You give me those tickets, I'll watch that thing. The NFL has got a competitor now, and it's the SEC. Those television ratings for that conference on weekends is going to be incredible. Can you imagine what the SEC title game in Atlanta is going to look like? Bama, Florida, Bama, Georgia, Bama, OU. Why would I watch the national championship game? Bama versus Washington Huskies. That's a lesser game. Bama, Oregon. That's a lesser game. Watch this. I could give you the fifth best team in the Southeastern Conference, and it would be the best team in every other power conference, except for Ohio State. And maybe Clemson. Every other place in America. Like, how about this? An SEC game versus Ohio State. I don't even know who Ohio State's quarterback is this year, so that could be something that Clemson would be favored in that game. Watch this. Clemson would be favored over Ohio State. Bama would be favored over Ohio State. Georgia would be favored over Ohio State. LSU and them probably in the same room. Dude, you're watching an incredible thing being made in front of your face here. And now, did you see yesterday, Bryce Young's salary? It's now up to $800K. The starting quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide, who has not started a down for Nick Saban, is now making $800,000. The program this year will make $125 million, and the quarterback makes $800,000. Sign me up for that. You don't have to knock on my door. I'll knock on your door. Coach, this is Dan Sileo, and I've got recruiting offers to go to Notre Dame, and which I did, and OU, and I'd like to come play for you. Well, we'll think about giving you a scholarship. Coach, I hope you do. And then you start telling other programs around the country like Oregon and USC, well, I'm waiting to see what Alabama does. Why? Well, because I might be able to make $250,000 a year there too. These guys are going to have the run of the mill on what they're going to be able to do. It's something that's going to change the game for sure. And it already has. July 1 changed everything. Did. July 1 changed everything. All right. I come back out of the timeout. I want to hit on Baker Mayfield and the Browns. Are they a true contender for a Super Bowl? We'll hit on it next. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show. So you're going to start Andy Dalton in Chicago. Why? You're going to go under the pretense that you're going to win a division title with Andy Dalton? Okay. Fastest way to get fired. At least when you have a rookie quarterback, you get somewhat of a hall pass a little bit here to develop the guy. You know, you're not going to get a 5-year program like you used to back in the day. You bring in a young quarterback, you know, you're developing him. Organization looks back and goes, we invested. See, do you know why that doesn't work any longer? Why do you think that is? Why these coaches don't spend, like, remember Josh Rosen, who was drafted by the Cardinals? They realized he sucked immediately, and what they do, they fired his ass and brought in Kyler Murray. Why do you think there's not that program? Like back in the day, if you drafted a guy high, you sat around for 4 years with the guy. And then you just sat around and you went like this. Well, he sucks. I mean, right? You just sit around and you're like, or you stay in that never-ending whirlpool that's in a toilet bowl. It just keeps moving around and around and around. And you're still in that 7-9, 9-7, 7-9, 8-8, 6-10 kind of whirlpool. Why do you think organizations back in the day, and you always follow the money? Well, because back in the day, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sam Bradford was the last quarterback that was in the previous CBA that the signing bonuses, when he came out of college, they were completely different. He signed a $50 million signing bonus. Remember when those signing bonuses used to be over the top and they were escalating so much? This guy had $54 million in guaranteed money when he came out of OU. That ended. They flipped it around and they ended up giving the money to the veteran guys. And now so much so is this. Even though they are guaranteed, they're not the incredible money. And with the new collective bargaining agreement, You get to defer a lot of that money out. So you're not destroyed any longer with your salary cap. People are always doing this now. Why do you think the Eagles ate that Wentz deal? Why do you think the Rams ate that golf deal? Why do you think because when that escalator kicks in next year with the new CBA, it's team friendly. You get to defer dead money out. Now, is it this year you got to hit it in the face right now? Absolutely. But next year, when the cap goes up, you get to defer your dead money. Look at the Rams, for instance. The Rams still owe Todd Gurley money. They owe Clay Matthews Jr. money. These guys haven't been on the team in 2 years. They still owe them dough. But now they're going to be able to spread that out and pay them like whenever they feel like it. Pay them in increments because it's part of what they signed also as players. So it's deferred out. You got to find out who Justin Field is, man. Can this guy play or not? Then you move on to the next guy. Think about this for a second. Name me a quarterback in the last 60 years in Chicago. 60 years. Let's see. Cade McNown. Who else? They've had it. Jim McMahon. He was good. Doug Flutie. Look at these guys. Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler may have been the best quarterback in the last 50 years, and that sucks. A guy you went, man, that guy is just really great. I can't name Sid Luckman. What was it, back in the 50s? The Bears have never had a quarterback. It's funny. I'll tell you what, this is going to be quite a little test here on Justin Fields. Kid comes out of Ohio State. Can you name me one quarterback out of that school that's ever been good in the NFL? One. They've been playing football for 150 years. One. Just give me one. Who? Krenzel? I think his name was Craig Krenzel or something. Mike Tomczak? Give me an Ohio State quarterback. Art Schlichter? I think he's in jail for embezzlement. One guy. So you drafted from a program, a kid that has had historically no success to a football team that in the last 50 plus years hasn't had a signal caller that's worth the crap. Boy, I'll tell you what, you're really that's going to change the curve in Chicago. My point is, why don't you find out who that kid is right now? See if he can play. What if he starts losing games? The guys in the room will go like this. If the guys go like this, they'll sit around and they'll go like this. Hey, man, we'll find out if he can play right now. Let's find out if he can win some ball games. You know who Andy Dalton is. You know who that guy is, right? What are you going to win? By the way, the Vikings and the Packers are better than you. Hey, so much for the Khalil Mack deal. Khalil Mack has meant, I had a conversation with one of my guys about defensive players today. Khalil Mack is considered one of the top pass rushers in the NFL, right? He meant nothing to the Bears since he's been in Chicago. Zero. He has had no impact. They beat Brady. Last year. Congratulations. That's your crowning achievement. Only thing is, you don't get banners and rings for beating somebody in the regular season. Just in case if you're keeping score in Chicago. I know you take the little victories and you try to turn them into championship banners, but nobody gets a banner for beating Brady. Maybe you should. I don't know. Chicago, their claim to fame is beating Brady and then them going on an iconic run, the Bucs, and winning a Super Bowl. Congratulations. Khalil Mack has had no impact. None. And for the record, the Raiders haven't done anything with those picks. Hell, they haven't even done anything with the pick they got for Amari Cooper when they sent his ass to Dallas. Because Mike Mayock and all them guys. Whatever. Bottom line is, hey, man, Chicago, you need to find out right now if you got a signal caller or not. I love these programs that do this. Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll sit them like we saw with Patrick Mahomes. You don't have Alex Smith in your offense. Alex Smith won ball games. Look it up. Alex Smith, last year's comeback player of the year, grotesque injury. I mean, he didn't have a bad record. Someone would go, well, Andy Dalton doesn't either. Yeah, but get this. You drafted a guy high to find out whether or not you're going to have a future quarterback. So you're going to sit your Ferrari in the garage and never drive it? What's the point of spending the money? You must have disposable income, which you don't. Because, as I said, you don't have a history of developing quarterbacks in that organization. And you're going to risk it on a guy you drafted from a program that's never had success. And some would say this to me, Sileo, you don't recruit to school. Really? I recruit Southeastern Conference schools. How about this? I love that conversation too, because it shows you how dumb you are. So you're telling me if I load up my roster on SEC kids and I put 75% of Southeastern Conference kids, am I going to miss maybe a guy like a Jerry Rice at Mississippi Valley State or a guy like Darryl Green at Texas A&I? Probably. But you know what I am going to have? I'm going to have a roster that I drafted from the conference that plays the best college football in the country and plays it every week. My chances of failure, this is what you're trying to do when you're drafting kids. You're not trying to find the gigantic superstar. You're trying to have success, a better success rate than everyone else. There's 7 rounds. How do you know you don't find Brady in the 6th round? And it turns that entire draft around for you because you found a GOAT in the 6th round. It's not always about the first round draft choices. It's about look at what Washington did a couple years ago. Washington, they drafted RG3, and then they turned around and they drafted Kirk Cousins in the 3rd or 4th round, I think it was. Cousins turned out to be the better player. You're trying to get success in your draft. If you think you're going around and you're going to go, well, my first round picks, especially in the top 15 picks, it's a gamble. You ever notice why the teams that pick in the lower end of the first round and the lower ends of every draft are there every year and they find quality guys? Because you know why? They're not reaching for anybody. Players fall to them. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at Aaron Rodgers, fell to the Packers. All those guys that are in the bottom end. Ray Lewis was down in the 20s. Ed Reed was down in the 20s. Hey, do you get lucky and find a guy at the top of the draft? Absolutely. Not saying you don't, but you're trying to get lucky with not just the first round. You're trying to have a quality year of draft choices. Why is that? Because you're balancing your cap. How many people know this? Half the league is undrafted players. You have to have undrafted players on your roster to balance your cap. Think about that. Undrafted, low-round guys fill out 50% of the NFL rosters for a reason. It's salary cap balancing. So, yeah. All right. Hey, real quick, the story of the day is Wentz's injury. Poof. If I'm Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, man, come Monday morning, I better have a direction for my franchise. I call up old Nicky Foles, and I bring Nicky Foles in for a coffee and donut and see what we can do here to try to make a deal for this guy. I try to do whatever I possibly can. Now, again, I'll have to look at the cap number for the Colts, but they need to figure it out. You just can't go into the regular season when you got offense and defense the way that they do, and you don't have a direction. You got nothing in your quarterback room right now but Wentz, an injured Wentz. Boy, I'll tell you, like I said, one thing you could not have to start your season was an injured Carson Wentz. And he didn't even get to Saturday. And your coach is in COVID-19 protocol. I think the way you wanted to kick your season off, I can promise you that not happening at all. Hey, don't forget, man, if you missed the show, we appreciate everybody coming aboard as you always do. Thank you so much. You can go over to JAKIB Media channel and you can replay the show. You can like it, share it, play it at any time. We will catch you Monday. Should be a lot of news come Monday too. Wow. This affects a lot of football teams, a division. Aaron Rodgers, there'll be a lot of news coming out of the weekend, college football-wise, as well as we're getting closer to that season. Krause, awesome. Thank you, Cal, again. Big Joe, we appreciate it. 4 to 6 Eastern time. Don't forget, we'll catch you on Monday. Have a great weekend.